The Kobo Libra 2 launched in 2021 and got a lot of attention back then. But how well does it hold up almost a year after its release? Let's check it out together in this long-term review and see if the Kobo Libra 2 is still a good choice. The Kobo Libra 2 is positioned in roughly the same segment as the Kindle Oasis. It has a 7-inch e-ink screen and an asymmetrical design with page turn buttons. However, with around $180, it's significantly cheaper than the competition from Amazon. And that actually shows in the used materials and the build quality. The Kobo Libra 2 is made out of plastic and you can immediately feel the difference to the more expensive Kindle Oasis when picking it up. It simply feels cheaper, which it is. The main reason for that is the hard plastic cover on the back. The Tolino Vision 6, which is the sibling from the Tolino Alliance in Germany, mostly uses the same materials except on the backside, where the Tolino model is using rubberized higher quality plastic and feels much nicer to the touch. The back cover of the Libra 2 is also the reason why the build quality doesn't feel as good as it could. Because the plastic cover tends to make a cracking noise here and there. It's not too frequent, but I definitely notice it in everyday use. Other than that, the Libra 2 feels sturdy and lies well in the hand. The asymmetrical design has been refined from the previous model, which is most obvious on the smoother edges and more rounded corners. That makes the Kobo Libra 2 pleasant to use, although its haptics are not as great as on the Pocketbook era, which I recently reviewed. Although I don't use them all the time, the page turn buttons are a welcome addition in comparison to older e-readers, which typically didn't have any. They are reachable very easily and make reading more comfortable. However, the pressure points of the buttons are not great. Where the buttons are closest to each other, it is quite hard to press them. It's not that big of a deal, but the Kindle Oasis shows how it can be done better with much more even pressure points. Let's have a look at display quality. The Kobo Libra 2 uses an e-ink Carta 1200 screen, which is currently the best e-ink technology in terms of contrast levels. It's the same technology the Kindle Paperwhite uses. Thanks to a resolution of 300 ppi, text and UI elements are sharp and crisp. But this is not just a result of the resolution, but also because of the absolutely gorgeous contrast levels as well. There's really no other way of putting it. The Kobo Libra 2 has one of the best contrast levels on an e-reader of all time, without overstating it. It's especially obvious when using the inbuilt light. Turning it on makes the screen background lighter, but the text still presents itself with deep blacks. That makes screen content really pop and a pleasure to read. I will compare the Kobo Libra 2 to its direct competitors in future videos, so don't forget to subscribe to the channel to not miss those follow-up comparisons. The great impression on the contrast levels is emphasized by the equally excellent lighting quality. Even though the Libra 2 is using an asymmetrical design which is generally more prone to irregularities, the light distribution is very even. There are really no complaints from my side. And I'm very sensitive to the lighting quality, as irregularities tend to distract me every time I see them. Obviously, you also get a color temperature adjustment, which I can also only say good things about. Kobo managed to pick the right color temperatures for both the cold and warm LEDs to mix a very clean looking white light, which I love using during the day. And at night you can switch to a saturated orange light setting, which helps with not interrupting sleep patterns and tends to reduce eye strain even more. So all in all, the display of the Kobo Libra 2 is great and still holds up very well 1 year after its launch. The only two other e-readers that are currently on the same high level are the Kindle Paperwhite and the Tolino Vision 6. If I had to name one thing I'd change, it's that the screen is recessed into the body. When not using a cover, dust builds up over time and it tends to sit on the edges of the screen. With a flush screen, there are no such problems. I was always a fan of the Kobo user interface, and that hasn't changed over the years. The user interface is pretty minimalistic and looks very clean. However, what I dislike about Kobo's approach is the need to connect to the internet and create a user account to use the device. Really not a big fan of being forced in doing that. But that's the way Kobo has been doing it since the beginning. Kobo also has been pushing shop contents onto the home screen a bit more aggressively over the last few years, which reminds me a lot of Amazon. It's still okay in my opinion, but makes the home screen definitely a bit more cluttered than it used to be. The Kobo Libra 2 has the reputation of being a slow e-reader. I can somewhat confirm this, but wouldn't say it's annoyingly slow. Yes, it's a bit slower than other current models because it uses an older chipset, but overall responsiveness was still totally okay. Especially inside a book, there's really nothing to complain about. Only when navigating the UI quickly, you might need to slow down a bit. On the plus side is the long battery life. The 1500 mAh battery delivers ink-worthy runtimes of several weeks. Of course, this depends on the user's reading and listening habits. Which brings us to the next point, audiobooks. Same as Amazon and others, Kobo has been pushing audiobook support on the e-readers for the last generations. The Kobo Libra 2 can play audiobooks via Bluetooth speakers or headphones. There is no inbuilt speaker like on the Pocketbook era. The system is heavily built around Kobo's audiobook offering, but actually also allows you to sideload audiobooks and music onto the Libra 2. However, doing so will not use the main audiobooks app, but a secondary audio player which does its job but doesn't look really nice. The user interface is just a bunch of links on the screen. So keep this in mind if you intend to use the Kobo Libra 2 for audiobooks you didn't directly buy in the Kobo-store. The library offers a few different filtering and sorting options, and also series and collections. Those can be used with Calibra tags as well, after setting it up for Kobo. Notes can be created with a long press on the screen on a single word or by selecting more text with swiping your finger over the text. The note is then pinned to the text you selected. When selecting a single word, the dictionary is shown in a small window where you have the option to directly switch between available dictionaries. There are quite a few explanatory and translation dictionaries available, and pretty much all of them come from reputable sources. They tend to work well, but same as on Pocketbook, they sometimes only recognize infinitive words. But it happens less often in my experience. The only downside is that the translation dictionaries are mostly only available to and from English. You can also quickly look up a word in Wikipedia or Google it. The browser that is being used for that is also available in the beta section of the device. It's actually in beta since I first tested the Kobo e-reader more than 10 years ago, I think, which is hilarious and sad at the same time. The browser itself is okay for a quick check, but nothing amazing and certainly not as fast as on other e-readers. Text styling has always been a strong suit of Kobo e-readers, which allows users to make many adaptations on how text looks on the page. Font size, font weight, line spacing and page margins can be changed with sliders, which allow for very personalized text stylings. If you intend to not buy ebooks from Kobo, but instead want to copy your own EPUB files onto the Libra 2, I recommend converting them to KEPUB files with Calibra first. EPUB files generally work well, but sometimes can have styling problems depending on what's saved in the file. While text styling options are great, PDF options really aren't. It basically comes down to pinch to zoom and that's it. Navigating PDF files works generally okay, but it isn't one of the Libra 2's strong points. Although even small text is readable without major problems thanks to the 300 ppi display, I wouldn't recommend in getting the Libra 2 for reading PDFs. There's just too little support there. The ebook store is accessible directly via the Discover menu item, which I always find a bit confusing. Why not just name it Shop or Store? The shop itself follows the same design language as the rest of the UI and actually looks like it's part of the system. It's easy to use, offers granular filtering options by genre, and has a useful search function with live search. so you can see the results directly while typing. International buyers should keep in mind that the audiobook section in the store and also the filter in the library are region locked. So while the basic functionality is there, the audiobook section in the shop is missing in certain countries. To see if your region is affected, check out the Kobo website and see if the audiobooks navigation item is missing or not. One thing I need to mention is the software stability of the Kobo Libra 2. The e-reader doesn't have the best reputation in that regard. On mobile read, quite a few people have been complaining about UI freezes and crashes. The problems seem to come from Kobo using different hardware components, which is not unusual for any consumer electronics device. However, in case of the Libra 2, it seems to sometimes cause problems. Kobo seems to have revised the hardware design at least once since the launch, and newer devices should be less prone to those mentioned problems. But even with old ones, not everybody has problems. And even though the issues seem to be hardware related, Kobo is working on fixing them with firmware updates. Some people have reported complete or almost complete resolution of problems with different updates. Lucky for me, I personally only had an issue once when I connected the e-reader to my PC and it was connecting to my Wi-Fi at the same moment. That crashed the Kobo Libra 2. But that was it. Never happened again, and it has been running stable ever since. It's still something you should keep in mind when thinking about purchasing the Libra 2. If your tolerance for software issues is low, you might want to look somewhere else, or only purchase the device where you can return it without a problem. As someone who is super sensitive about contrast levels and lighting quality of the screen, the Kobo Libra 2 is currently one of my favorite e-readers. Even a year after its launch, I still love to pick it up to read something. Text simply looks amazing. Since I was also not affected by the reported software problems, my overall experience with the Kobo Libra 2 has been very good, as a pure reading device that is. Because as a PDF viewer, the Libra 2 isn't really a good pick, despite having a high-res 7-inch display. Sideloading audiobooks and music isn't the greatest experience either, but at least you have the option to do so. Kindle doesn't have that. And last but not least, I don't love the haptics of the Kobo Libra 2. The hard plastic cover feels so cheap that it actually annoys me even to this day. So I recommend in using a cover. So the bottom line is this. Get the Kobo Libra 2 if you want the best display quality you can get at the moment, but be prepared to compromise on the mentioned points. Also make sure to watch my review of the Pocketbook Era, which is in the same size and price segment, but offers much more comprehensive software options. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you found this review useful. Thanks for watching and see you in the next one.